what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. However you are consuming the show, I appreciate you. If you guys aren't subscribed, if you're not following, please do that. Even if you're watching us on the video side, hit that pause button on the video. Pull out your phone, your laptop, wherever you would listen to a podcast. Just go to Spotify or Apple, type in Talking Buffalo, and just hit that little follow button. It really helps us continue to grow this show. You know what? Shout out Sports City Pizza Pub. If you happen to be watching the video, got one of their polos on today, man. Great place on the west side, Niagara Street. Make sure you go and check them out. All right, folks, this is our midweek episode, which means, as usual, for our positional analysis report, a look to the next opponent. We'll get to some other stuff as well. My man from SB Nation, as Joe from Queens likes to call him, Matt Rich Warren the Seventh.
Okay.
That's not bad. That's not an insulting one. Matt Rich Warren the Seventh, man. What's up?
He could call me a lot worse. No, just, snow. It's funny because like my office like has all these windows, right? And so I'm watching the game and the shades are drawn because like I get glare on the TV. I don't want to watch it. So like I go downstairs at like halftime to make pizza logs or whatever because like I'm depressed about how the Bills have performed in the first half. And pizza logs always cheer me up.
Of course.
And I look outside and it's snowing. I'm like, okay. Like, it's November. Like we get snow here in Buffalo. And then like I come down after the game and it's like starting to accumulate. It's sticking. I was like, I did not expect the sticking. I expected the falling. And so when I had to brush off my car on Monday morning, I was even more depressed than after watching that Bills game.
You know, it's funny. We live here for most of our life. All your life in this region, me, most of it anyway. And you think you get used to it by now. It's like, it's coming. It's like we've seen snow before. We know the weather turns around this time of year, but it doesn't make it any less depressing annually when it happens. It's, it sucks. I put up something earlier this morning, too. We're recording this on Tuesday, late morning. Always, that's our weekly disclaimer here. It's harder to get out of bed when it's cold. And when it's cold, and my wife, I might kill her this winter, man. She, no matter how cold it is, got to crack the window, got to have the fan on. It's like, it's like a legitimate freezer in our bed. So it's hard for me to get up. It's harder to get up, I should say, in the morning when it's cold. You said you were depressed at halftime of this game. We're going to talk plenty about it today. Like I said, like we do every week, one of my favorite things to do during the week, we kind of get a chance to go through this team positionally, talk about the team bit by bit, and ultimately Matt's going to assign a grade. We'll take a quick look near the end of the show towards Tampa Bay, which a big game now on Sunday. It's a big game for both teams. This is the Bills have to win this game. Let's just put it that way. And we'll get into that later on. Well, I should say they have to win this game. If they have hopes of winning the AFC East for a sixth straight year, they better win this game. Let's just put it that way. We'll get to that. It's funny, too, people, how they handle losses. Mm-hmm. I thought this was funny. Maybe you don't. I saw a tweet. Somebody said that Tyler Dunn, they desperately need Tyler Dunn to write a scathing column about whether it's Sean McDermott or especially Joe Brady. Like Tyler Dunn to the back, put the bat signal up with Tyler Dunn's face on it. I saw that tweet. It was pretty funny, wasn't it?
I almost sent it to Tyler because I thought it was legitimately hilarious.
He saw it.
I'm sure he did. Like there's no way people weren't sending that to him, but so I just didn't join in the chorus, but no, he's a very good sport about that kind of stuff. And I'm sure he responded well to it.
Two things that I want to get into before we dive into our positional analysis. Number one, news broke over the weekend. All right, so we've heard rumors last week at the Bills, and you heard Brandon Beane's press conference. Yep. Matt and I did a show during the nighttime because we had to wait till after the trade deadline. And I think we were both a little befuddled, certainly surprised that the Bills didn't do anything. And we kind of talked about that. So we won't go down that entire road again. But Brandon Beane did speak and was pretty frustrated during his comments on Wednesday, mentioning things like, he would have bet money as well, that he would have lost money because he was betting there would have been a trade, and he went home as angry as any fan, which no, you didn't, by the way, but he went home angry as any fan after the trade deadline and no deal was done. And I had heard, and we've talked about there was some big game fishing going on for the Bills that ultimately didn't land. couldn't trade within the division. But there was kind of a lack of specifics. And Sunday on NFL Network, Tom Pelissero kind of, he put some specifics together with Quinnen Williams, but especially with Jalen Waddle, who apparently the Bills were the highest bidder for. I'm going to play a clip. This is Tom Pelissero on NFL Network last Sunday. Hear what he has to say about why a deal didn't get done with the Bills, and then I'll get some quick reaction from you.
Mike, the Bills did not make a trade for Tuesday's deadline, but it was not for a lack of trying. I am told the Bills made a run at multiple big targets within the AFC East, offering a first-round pick as part of a package to the Dolphins for wide receiver Jalen Waddle and to the Jets for defensive lineman Quinnen Williams. In fact, I am told the Bills had the highest offer for Jalen Waddle, but Miami wanted a first-round pick in 2026, not 2027 as part of the package. Ultimately, Miami decided that the Bills' offer, which also included a third-round pick in 2026, was not enough to move their star wide receiver.
All right, so I guess my question, Matt, for you is, let's assume, and we'd be making an assumption on speculation. We don't know this to be fact, but let's assume that report is accurate, okay? And it sure sounds to me, if I'm listening to that correctly, if my comprehension is correct, that what prevented this deal from ultimately getting done was Miami wanted that first-round pick in 2026, and Brandon Beane was willing to give them a first-round pick in 2027. From what I could ascertain, I would say that Brandon Beane, with the salary cap situation the way it is, and we're going to probably lose some players after the season, they're probably not going to be able to be really active, that he puts a premium on this coming draft class, and ultimately Brandon Beane was not willing to not have a first and a third round pick in this next draft based on that. My question to you is, if that is the case, and this deal did not get done because he would not move a 2027 to a 2026, and if it could have gotten done had they given up a first and third next year, what's your reaction when you hear that?
Yeah, it's obviously frustrating. The Bills going in with, I think they only have 6 picks next year. And so getting rid of 2 more of them, I think is, it's hefty.
Sure.
So if it's the first and the third next year, and that was the math, I mean, I would have still, I probably would have done it just because I think Waddle's that talented. He's under contract until 2028. It's not like, it's the 1-year rental for Amari Cooper or whatever it is. He'd be super cheap for the rest of this year, something that they were looking for. It checked all the boxes. If moving the 2027 first to a 2026 first meant that I didn't have to give them the 2026 third, and I could, shift that to the future or something like that, I definitely would have done it. The first and the third in 2026 is very steep, but I probably still would have pulled that trigger just because of how much I think of Jalen Waddle.
I couldn't agree with you more.
If the Dolphins would have even done it, we don't know. Like, Pelissero says that the Dolphins wanted the 2026 first. Like, would they have even traded him in the division for that? I don't really know. So it's, even if it's all hypothetical at this point too. So
sure,
you do have to take everything like with a grain of salt. I would have made that trade for the first and the third, but I understand not doing it. And I understand the Dolphins saying no to that, even if Brandon Beane went up to that.
I want to be careful on how I react because, again, at the end of the day, it is speculatory. I will say it sounds to me like, well, Miami wanted this and the Bills were only willing to give them that. So if Buffalo would have said what Miami, or gave them what Miami wanted, that the deal would have gotten done. If that deal would have gotten done, if Miami would have signed off on it, if they gave up a first and third this year and they didn't, I would say shame on Brandon Beane. And I understand. Trust me when I tell you, I know how important draft picks are. They're more important than most people give credit for. This is a team, especially, they've had a lot of success on day 3, actually, of the draft. Okay, not maybe so much, ironically, on day 2. So that third round pick, that's easy for me to move off of. But I guess what I'm saying is you have a quarterback who's going to be 30 years old, man. And This is year 8. And this offense was just better when they had Stephon Diggs. And this guy's Stephon Diggs, maybe even more. He's young, not a problem, and you have an opportunity to go get him for a first and a third.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a Super Bowl year, and this is not a Super Bowl roster. It's not a Super Bowl unit of pass catchers right now. And I know in the past there's been Super Bowls that have been won with receiving groups that are just as bad, okay, or just as irrelevant, I should say. But you have an opportunity to go get a stud, a superstar player in this league. You got to go do it, man. If you have a 22-year-old quarterback, maybe you don't. Or if I don't know, dude. I don't know if it's true. So that's why I don't want to overreact too much.
What's going to happen this offseason when he trades that third rounder to move up in the first round to select a wide receiver? Like he moves up 8 slots in the first round with the trading that third round pick. And now it's the exact same thing, but now you have a rookie coming in that you don't really know how they're going to perform. Or, I mean, we've seen him move those picks like for less of a return. And so that's why, again, it kind of surprised me when I heard that. Like that was the only hiccup, because I mean, we've seen him pull the trigger on similar deals to that before with Stephon Diggs. And so it wouldn't have shocked me if he had made that move because of where the Bills were. Now I understand that they're in different situations. Like, doing Josh Allen's development is different than doing Josh Allen's Super Bowl window, for instance. But like, still, if he was available, like that seems like, I mean, you're not going to get a more talented wide receiver than him, say 50% of the time or more at where they're picking in the first round. And so it just makes sense that they would have moved that late first round pick for a guy like him.
I got to say, I mean, Brandon Beane's history of drafting in the first few rounds is checkered, like a lot of GMs. I mean, very few GMs. So I'm not saying it's something unique, but I don't know. I'm snake bitten by Keon Coleman still, not taking Lamb McConkey. Who knows if they get it right anyway, no matter what receiver they take. They're probably, if you get Jalen Waddle, you got to assume that they're going to be in the bottom, say, 6 of the draft. So, I mean, you're talking 26, 27 or higher, or lower, I should say, in the draft. I don't know. I'll just say that if that is the case, and it could have been done for first and third, and Bean decided that having those 2 picks is more important because of the cap and all this other stuff, that I just say shame on him if that is the case. Now, the Bills did make a move on Monday. I recorded the podcast for Tuesday, and literally as I was done and went on Twitter, I see immediately the Bills. I get a couple texts too. Mecole Hardman, LOL, was pretty much the texts that I got from people. The Bills did sign Mecole Hardman. What are your thoughts? I see him more, and we talked about this for a few minutes off here before we got on. I think he's the Brandon Condrington replacement personally. I think he's going to take over returning duties, be that 5th or 6th receiver if they need, or maybe they run a route for him or something at some point during the game. But primarily, I think that's the bigger reason why they signed him, because if they sign him just for his receiving prowess, it's like you already got enough kinds of dudes like that on your football team already. I don't know. What do you think, man?
Hey, he's a former 2nd round pick that played a key role in a Super Bowl victory. No, he's a piece. There's a reason he was available and not even on anyone's practice squad in November. So I don't have high hopes for him doing a whole lot. I mean, I know he has speed, and they're severely lacking it, but now they've got 2, I don't know. They've got a legitimate NFL wide receiver in Gabe Davis on their practice squad.
Yeah.
They've got Mecole Hardman, who is a borderline NFL receiver, on their practice squad. So it's probably the best that you can do the week after the NFL trade deadline. And so like anyone who's saying, well, they should have gone and done something better, it's like, there's not a lot of options once a trade deadline passes. And Gabe Davis and Mecole Hardman, are like the 2 best options that are out there right now.
Yeah. I just think KJ Hamler, the kind of same thing to me, you know what I mean? Same type of player or whatever. Now, he has had some success before, and he is a champion. I mean, that matters as well, I guess. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll talk about them a little bit more when we get to the wide receivers. Let's get into our weekly positional analysis. Again, the Buffalo Bills just played about as bad of a football game as they're capable of playing. As bad of a game, as flat of a game, as uninspired of a game as you will see from a Sean McDermott coach team. They've had some real stinkers before, some real letdowns, but in terms of effort and intensity and energy, this was about as bad as I've seen from this team, which kind of reminds me, Matt, Joe Miller, who at the time was with Rumblings, and he had a podcast, and we did a live show at Resurgence a handful of years ago. And it was Joe Miller, and he had a panel of guests, and they included myself and Nate Gary. And they were at Jacksonville that week. And I can't remember a lot about, I know they lost the game, but Nate and I wouldn't even acknowledge that they were playing Jacksonville. We were talking about the big picture stuff and who they were playing the next week. I can't remember even who it was, but they lost that week to Jacksonville. And afterwards, I was like, God, me and Nate are absolute idiots because we just refused to even acknowledge Jacksonville as a worthy opponent. I kind of feel that way right now with the Buffalo Bills. Like, I look back at my prediction and preview show from last Friday, and I scoffed. I laughed at the thought of Miami winning this game. I said the only drama, the only, teaser at the beginning, stick around to the end, was because will the Bills cover the 9.5-point spread? That was it. That was the drama I teased. Before we get into the positions, just how shocked are you that this team came out and played a game the way that it did on Sunday?
Yeah, it was really surprising. I remember that Jaguars game at Urban Meyer's Super Bowl, probably.
Sure.
But we could explain away the other losses, I think, a little bit easier than this one. And so there's not a reason I can point to that the Bills lost this game that was out of their control. They should have been able to control the narrative of this game, and they didn't. They did outgain the Miami Dolphins, which I think is a fun little stat. But 3 red zone turnovers essentially really, really hurt them. And they were all super fluky. And so sometimes, especially divisional games, sometimes turnovers can get fluky like that. And, it's unfortunate, obviously. Almost until that really long Achane touchdown run, I was still thinking that they were going to pull it out.
Me too.
Everyone's like, oh man, this team's done. Put a fork in them. I'm like, dude, there was 5 minutes left against the freaking Ravens, and they came back and won. And then Achane does the dagger, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're gonna move on to next week. So I at no point in time did I think the Bills were gonna lose that game until they gave up that long touchdown run.
To quote a famous old wrestler, Rowdy Roddy Piper, is just when you think you have all the answers, I change the questions. That's the NFL, because you just never know. The Bills go to Miami and stink that stadium up. Green Bay a couple weeks ago at home loses to a Carolina team that got shellacked by the Bills the week before that, 40-9. You just never know in this league.
The Patriots' first loss of the season was against the Raiders. The Raiders have looked like absolute trash since then. And sometimes things are out of your control. And like I said, the fluky turnovers really, really hurt them. You're going to see it in my grades. I didn't trash them as much as they could have been trashed for their the turnovers this week, because I do think that they were a little bit fluky. But it's just, it was a hard game to watch. I did swear a couple times, which,
that's a rarity. You don't strike me as much of a cusser. You're certainly not on this podcast.
When Josh Allen fumbled, it was that you really felt that was the end of the game, really. And I'm just I just let out one shit, and I'm like, oh God,
really
it was
quick
loud enough for the family to hear it. So there you go.
Real quick before we dive into our positional analysis, you were telling me about a book.
Oh yeah,
that piqued my interest. We talked for a few minutes before we went on the air here. Let people know what's going on with this book that you're talking about.
Sure. Last month, this new book called Every Day is Sunday came out by Ken Belson of the New York Times. It's it chronicles Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, and Roger Goodell, really the rise of the NFL since the 1993 collective bargaining agreement, and then kind of how the three of those guys have really taken the NFL to the next level. Ken's going to be in town on Thursday and Friday doing a couple events. Thursday night, he has a happy hour at the Place on Lexington Avenue in
Elmwood
Buffalo.
Village.
What's that?
Elmwood Village.
Yeah, it's around the corner from Thirsty Buffalo. I've never been there before, but I'm going to go over to that happy hour to meet him. And then on Friday, he's doing a panel at UB exploring public sector policy investments. So essentially public money funding private stadiums like the one in Buffalo or Orchard Park, I guess I should say. He's on that panel at UB. There's a free live stream available for that, and you can go in person as well. I think I'm probably going to end up live streaming that instead of driving back to Buffalo on Friday, but we'll end up seeing what happens. But I should be there on Thursday night. He did a nice interview, Ken did, on Tim Graham's podcast a few weeks ago, right when the book came out. If you're a football nerd, it's really, really interesting talking about the CBA and like the business aspect and all the behind the scenes stuff. There is some Terry Pagula stuff in there that I hadn't heard before. There is a lot of stadium stuff in there, but most of it is about like CBAs and like television contracts and all that stuff. So really interesting stuff for an NFL nerd like me.
That's interesting, man. I'll tell you what, dude. I'll stick that information as well in the show notes. If I get a chance, maybe I'll come up there on Thursday night. The place.
The place. That's all it's called. It's the place.
I grew up in the West Side, not far from the Elmwood Village. And you and I had a little Laurel and Hardy bit before the show. You said the place. I'm like, where's the place? You're like, the place. I've never been there. Never heard of it. I'm going to have to check that out. That sounds like a fun event, a good idea. So maybe I'll get up there on Thursday night. All right, quarterbacks. Josh Allen, 28 of 40, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 carries for 31 yards. Statistically, that looks like a pretty damn good Josh Allen game. However, 2 absolutely huge turnovers. I will add one little thing here, one little nugget, because you said this and I'm going to follow up on it. The Bills had 3 turnovers. I would say 2 of them were kind of on the fluky side. The Cook fumble, the Josh fumble were just, good plays by the Miami guys, knocked him out. The interception was awful, though. You can't have that. So Josh, again, statistically great, but 2 big turnovers, 1 an interception in the end zone for Knox when they were down 16-0 at the time. And then the second one was a 3rd and 1 tush-push conversion. He ran for like 15 yards. And it was like, oh, here's a typical Josh ESPN play. He's a gamer. He ain't going down. Well, he fumbled the football. And the Bills were down 16-6 at the time. They're going in to make this a 1-score game probably on that drive. So Josh Allen contributed to this Bills loss. Those turnovers were big. You cannot look past them. Mitch Trubisky got an appearance. He ran one time for 4 yards, which, by the way, not a fun fact. It's more rushing yards than Ty Johnson and Ray Davis got in 3 carries combined for this game. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, quarterback, go ahead.
Right. So the fumble, I think, was fluky. The interception, it's hard to tell who the interception was on, if it was Dawson Knox or Josh Allen. I do think it was a miscommunication between the two of them. And that makes sense, especially in the context of Dalton Kincaid being out of the game and Knox being in that situation, probably not by design. So like it was, Knox turns around. He's supposed to either go out or in, depending on how he feels. The defense, I do think it was probably Josh on that one. To be fair, to Knox, I do think that, like, yes, maybe there was a miscommunication, but I would probably put more of the blame on Allen there. And it just keeps coming back to, it feels like he's frustrated all the time because he doesn't know what the receivers, and I'm including Knox in this, what the receivers are going to be doing, whether they're going to get separation or not. And he just feels like he's frustrated all the time with that. I don't think he was the reason they lost. I think he was the reason that they were even in that game down the stretch. He took what the defense gave him over and over and over again, sometimes to a frustrating level. That touchdown pass to Coleman, I think, was gutsy because Coleman, they threw a bunch of jump balls to Coleman in this game, and he hasn't really come up with a lot of them, but he came up with that one. He had that ridiculous backyard bullshit conversion where he's like running around for 20 seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so there was a lot of good in that, even though those 2 turnovers were super devastating. I gave him a B- because, again, that fumble, whatever, like, I don't want him to go down. I want him to keep running the ball. So it's like, I'm not going to ding him too much for that fumble. And then that interception, I think, was just a miscommunication between him and Knox. So I ultimately gave him a B-. I think the good outweighed the bad in this game.
B- sounds fair. I don't want to speak out of turns because we're going to get to receivers in a few minutes, but man, it's not hyperbole. People who, man, they will say, no one's ever open. And I'm no film guru, okay? I don't know what routes these guys are supposed to run half the time. I put up clips on Twitter. I try to explain what I see, what I think. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm probably wrong. But I think it is just obvious that the routes aren't crispy. They're not well schemed, and they just don't look well executed. It just looks like guys are just running to a spot and turning around for the football half the time. It's wild to me, man. A B- sounds fair. If we got time, because I want to make sure we get to everything. If we got time at the end, I want to circle back to Josh Allen. And it's not really necessarily anything that happened on the field, but I want to get your thoughts on something if we got time. Before we get to a break.
There was one thing I wanted to add. Hold on.
Go ahead. Absolutely.
The other thing, like if you add in that Dalton Kincaid drop right before the half, like they might be able to manufacture that 2-minute drill. Josh's stats look even better than they do here. It's just like, like I said, I don't want to put the blame for this loss on Josh Allen, even though he had those 2 turnovers that like were a little bit fluky. I think he's the reason they were in this game, not the reason they lost this game.
That's very fair. Very fair. All right, running backs. James Cook, 13 carries for 53 yards, and he had a costly fumble in this game in Miami territory. They were near the red zone.
Yep.
5 catches for 24 yards. Ty Johnson had 2 catches for 24 yards. He had a 16-yard catch. It was a nice one on the left sideline. Ray Davis just continues to be a season to forget. Let's just call it a season to forget. 2 rushes for -2 yards, 1 reception for no yards. So 3 touches in this game, -2 yards. A very ugly, and I'm not going to put it on him. I don't know why he was out there. I still don't know as we record this. An onside kick attempt. I mean, what in the blue hell are they doing there? But this is not about special teams, so we'll stick to running backs for now. But anyway, that's your summary, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, the onside kick was clearly an attempt to add another attempted recoverer to that. You don't want Matt Prater diving headfirst into a pile, but you can have Ray Davis diving headfirst into a pile, I guess. It did not look great, but most of the onside kick attempts I've seen didn't look great this weekend either.
Fair.
The question I wrote down is like, doesn't it feel like, everyone's been complaining that James Cook hasn't been involved in the passing game. This week he gets 5 catches for 24 yards, but it didn't feel like those were like designed for James Cook. It felt like the lack of passing downfield was like, okay, here you go, James. Like it wasn't even a here you go, James. It was okay. I'm just dumping it off. I don't care.
Dump offs. That's all they were.
We can talk about his involvement in the passing game, but I don't think it was by design. Let's say.
Nope.
4.1 yards per carry isn't bad, but it's not going to carry the offense. And we've seen the running game carry the offense repeatedly. And when it doesn't, that's when they struggle. And so, do I put that on Cook? Probably not. I mean, there was a lot of things the Dolphins did to really frustrate the Bills play callers, and we'll get to that later. I gave them a B- too. Again, it was a fluky fumble. He was like, a split second from being down. The guy comes in and punches it on the right. Like they did only run that toss, I think, once or twice in the game, which was so successful in the last few weeks. I was wondering why they didn't do it more this week. And then they ran it, and then he fumbles. I'm like, well, shit. Like, so like anyway. So I give him a B- for the running game, but like it's certainly because I mean, Ty Johnson did have that nice 16-yard wide receiver screen conversion, which why we're running wide receiver screens to Ty Johnson on 3rd and long is, beyond me, but it's not his fault.
I agree with you again. And, sometimes if you just look at a box score and you'll see 3 turnovers that your 2 best players are directly 100% responsible for, it could be a little deceiving because, like you said, at least 2 of the 3 are definitely just, it's almost as much a great defensive play as it is. Mm-hmm. If James Cook would have just bobbled the ball as he was going down or something like that, I'd be like, you got to secure the ball better. Or if it would have been a different kind of play, but he was just trying to make something happen, and his knee was literally about maybe 2 inches away from him being down. So a B- to me sounds fair. Anyway, all right, let's take a quick break. I think we're going to have a few that we don't agree on. I don't know because I haven't talked to you about what you're thinking and what your grades are. But I do think we're going to have a couple that we might disagree on. And we'll get to those right after this quick break. All All right, Matt Rich Warren, the 7th here at SB Nation with me today. We're going through our positional analysis.
There are a lot of
By the
Matts.
way, I think it's because you use the middle name Rich a lot, so it just makes it even longer, drags it out. I think that's his attempt.
Yeah, when you're trying to do usernames back, in 2002 or whatever it was, there's like 5 million Matt Warrens out there. So
I get you, man. I got you.
That's
All
fine.
right,
No, that's totally fine.
Receivers.
Maybe it's just because he thinks I'm rich, and so I would name my kid after my.
Could be. All right, receivers here. I'm just going to give you the numbers. No context. You go where you want to go with this. Khalil Shakir, 7 catches, 58 yards. Keon Coleman, 3 catches for 46 yards and a touchdown. Tyrell Shavers, 1 catch for 24 yards. Curtis Samuel, 1 catch for 21 yards. Elijah Moore, 2 catches for 9 yards. That's my spiel.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, if you just gave me the name and the yardage totals, I'd be like, yeah, that's probably what I would expect. That's pretty good. So I never expected Keon Coleman to be 100 yards a game. I never expected Khalil Shakir to be 100 yards a game. Elijah Moore doing what he did, Curtis Samuel doing what he did, Terrell Shavers. I mean, that number is good for Shavers. So it's almost in a vacuum. You're like, that's not that bad. But then you watch the game and it's horrible. The wide receiver position is bad. And Keon Coleman's touchdown is the only thing that kept this from being an F this week. He was targeted 8 times, but only had 3 catches. We talked about that a little bit earlier when we were talking about Josh Allen. He was throwing up jump balls for Coleman, and Coleman was routinely not coming down for him, coming down for them, with them. And so when Josh threw that and I saw that it was Coleman, I'm like, okay, we're going to get another drop. And then he mossed it, scored the touchdown. I'm like, this is kind of what we're hoping for Keon Coleman. He just is never consistent enough for it. So, Joe Biscaglia put together a stat when it was still a 2-score game, the average depth of target was 5 yards. And that seems low because it is, but it's better than against the Panthers and the Chiefs when it was 0.75 air yards and 2.17 air yards. So when all of your yards come after the catch, it is beyond frustrating for fans. I'm sure for Josh Allen. I'm sure for Joe Brady. Josh Palmer was close to returning this week. They desperately need him back.
Oh God,
Gabe Davis, who would have thought we're going to be relying on Gabe Davis this season? They just need to try something else because this isn't working. And so I'm not I'm not the person that's sitting here saying Gabe Davis is going to come in and save this season, because I don't think he is. But they just need to try something else because what they're doing is not working. And so I gave them a D because Coleman showed up for that one play. But it's not good out there.
No. You know what? I want to actually start with Khalil Shakir. 7 catches for 58 yards. And I'm thinking back to the last couple of games. Khalil Shakir has been nothing more other than one play. He had a nice crossing route. I believe it was against Kansas City last week, 20-yard catch and run. That was really nice. Aside from that, he's been the safety valve. That's all. Just dump it to him. It's a quick bubble screen.
Yeah.
Try to make him, 3 guys have to miss, or, just quick little, in routes, whatever, for 6-7 yards, maybe at the most. I'd like to see, I think there's more to him, and I'd like to see more. 7 catches for 58 yards again. And the Curtis Samuel play, the 21-yard catch, I'm not going to give him any credit. That was Josh running around for 45 seconds and running the length of a football field before he found somebody open in Samuel to make the play. So that was 100% Josh Allen there. Shavers catch, okay, fine, whatever. I got to say this about Keon Coleman. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Shakir thing, if he's catching 58 yards a game, that's on pace for 1,000-yard season. It's 50 yards is what he's averaging right now. I mean, he's on pace for 850 yards this season. That's what we expected. The problem is we aren't getting what we need out of Keon Coleman, and we aren't getting what we need out of that, let's say, third nebulous receiver, whether it was going to be Josh Palmer or Curtis Samuel or whoever. We're not getting it out of that position. I think Shakir is playing to expectation this year. Coleman is certainly under expectation, but not by that much. And at least on the aggregate, on a game by game basis, I think Coleman is really struggling, but looking at the totality, he just played so far above what we expected in week 1 that I think expectations got a little bit miscast for Keon Coleman.
If you and I were servers at a restaurant and our goal is to make $150 in tips, okay? Let's just say that's our goal. Khalil Shakir is getting to $150 in tips by serving a gazillion tables. I want to make $150 in tips, and I would like to be able to do it with a couple big tips. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have to serve 75 tables to get to $150. Give me a couple tables where I'm getting a really a nice, juicy tip that will help me get there, so I'm a little less grinded out. And, there's other things going on at the restaurant. If you get what I'm saying right now. You're right about his stats and where he's projected to. I would like to see, I think he's more than just a safety valve, little quick shifty, make 3 people miss. He could work a little more in the intermediate part of the field, and I would like to see that a little bit more with him.
And they're paying him to do that.
Yes, and they are paying him to do that. It's a great follow-up as well. Okay, Keon Coleman. I do not want to sound like a hater here, okay? It just seems like week after week, this guy's getting beat up. Is it deserved? Is it not deserved? That's what we can debate. Here's what I'm going to say. That 35-yard touchdown catch, I give him almost no credit for. I don't. Listen, there was a 4th-string quarterback. Ethan Bonner was on the football field for that. And if you look at the play, it's not like Keon went up and mossed him or anything like that. It was more Ethan Bonner looked the wrong way. He's a lousy corner. He's Dane Jackson for the Miami Dolphins. That's what he is.
So why couldn't they do it more then?
That's a great question. You should ask Joe Brady that. You should ask Joe Brady that question. So anyway, that's more of a product of just bad coverage. It looked like training camp when he would beat Dorian Strong or to Corey Couch or somebody like that at camp, and we were ready to anoint this guy as this version of T. Higgins or whatever. So there's that, okay? That aside, 8 games now, Matt. That's almost a half season. In his last 8 games, he's got 24 catches for 218 yards in his last 8 games. This is a guy that you just continue to throw out there, and you're throwing him volume. He's played 71% of the snaps.
Yep.
By far the most of any receiver on this football team. I got to see if I can pull this up in real time. I am not very smart, so let me see if I could share this on the screen. I hope I don't screw this up. I probably will. Let me see. I'm going to pull this up here. I don't know if you can see this or not. Anthony Prohaska from Cover One put this up. This is Keon Coleman's target map for the season. And look how many passes are to the boundary on the outside. And yellow is incomplete. Yellow is bad, okay? There is a lot of yellow. I don't even know if you could see this or if people can see this. I'm going to leave it up there for a second. I'm going to remove it. Anyway, his target, do I want to remove this layer? I think I do. All right. I was really scared I was going to screw something up.
They're trying to do the boundary contested catch stuff with him. Back shoulder throws.
Ain't working.
Trying to go up and over, and it's just not working.
It's not working.
It could be a feel thing. It could be a skill set thing. But, like, that's why he was drafted to do those contested catches, and it's not working out.
I'm going to say something that some people will agree with, fans, maybe some smart football people will disagree with, but I'm going to be honest. I watched the All-22, and again, I am no freaking expert, but I know what effort is, and I'm telling you, there's a handful of reps where either A, it doesn't look like he's running 100%, and if he is really lousy at getting in and out of breaks because it just looks bad on tape. And it looks bad on the broadcast when you're watching it too. I mean, I saw some people screenshotting a couple plays where he was taking a stroll down the left sideline, stroll in the park during the game. I'm going to give you, I don't even want to call it a prediction, Paul Heyman style. I'm going to give you a spoiler. His days are numbered in Buffalo. I do not think he's going to be a Buffalo Bill. The way things are going right now, I do not think he's going to be a Buffalo Bill next season. I do think that his name was floated out there in some trade rumors before this trade deadline. I do think Sean McDermott has about had enough of Keon Coleman. If you watched the press conference, and Matt Milano did an excellent job of following up, did you notice a lack of effort? And when Sean kind of talked about all the players, Matt Milano asked about Keon Coleman specifically. And you could tell Sean was trying to say the things the right way, to be careful that, hey, him and other players too, they know, they're aware when I don't think the effort is there. It's not. So I think he's in trouble soon. Like, Gabe Davis, you mentioned Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
You're going to see Gabe Davis. And it's going, when it happens, I think it's going to come at the expense of Keon Coleman snaps. I wouldn't even be shocked if before the season's over, the rate things are going, if this dude ends up inactive.
Well, that was what I was
mean it.
going to ask you. He's not playing special teams. So if you're bringing up
Nope.
Gabe Davis
Yep.
to play meaningful snaps for you, it's probably in the Keon Coleman spot on the active roster.
And when you do that, I think you would agree with this. If you do that, when you do that, if you bring up Gabe Davis this week, next week, the week after, and he plays and he's active, and you're right, and that means Keon Coleman's not active. The first time you making Keon Coleman inactive, you may as well wash your hands with him because I think it's over for him.
I don't necessarily. Like, if you're doing it to send a message to him, like they've already sat him for opening series. They've sat him for quarters.
Send messages to him.
Well, that's my point. Like this would be the next escalation of those messages. And so whatever's happened behind closed doors, this would be very clearly, not behind closed doors. And then he would have to answer questions about it after the game too. Sean McDermott, that is. And so if they do bring up a Gabe Davis and sit Keon Coleman for, an entire game, say against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or whoever, it could be in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that would be the clearest indication that they're trying something different with him or trying something additional with him. Maybe the better way to say it.
Buckle your seatbelts because I'm telling you, something's going to happen with him and it's going to be sooner than later. All right, let's get to some things. We're kind of on a pitch count here. We're only getting the tight ends because this is juicy stuff. There's a lot to talk about with this team right now, but we'll start to fly through at least some of these categories anyway. Tight end, especially when you get to the defense. I think the defense is a little more black and white than the offense right now. Offense is a little more, what are we doing wrong? Defense is, I just don't know that they got enough talent out there at certain positions. Anyway, tight end, Dalton Kincaid, 2 catches for 37 yards. Did have a drop in the rain. I guess, it happens. It happens.
It was such a hard one.
Yes. And far more importantly, he hurt his hamstring and he's week to week. Oh, God, that sucks. Dawson Knox, 3 catches for 37 yards. Jackson Hawes, 1 catch for 26 yards and a touchdown. Combined, 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. This has consistently been Matt Warren's best graded position all season long. Does it continue?
Yes. They got the best grade of the week for me again, especially without knowing whose fault it was on the interception. Nobody's come out and said
sure.
And nobody's going to say Dawson took a step the wrong way or whatever it is. And so again, this is just my opinion. I think it was probably a Josh Allen mistake in this particular sense because it felt like the linebacker that made the interception, I think it was linebacker, had inside shade. And so Knox going outside makes sense to me. But I don't really know what the route was supposed to be. So I went A when I wrote it down because I like their stats altogether. And I think they've consistently been the most consistent week to week part of this offense. But then I knocked it down to an A- after the interception, after considering the drop by Kincaid right before the half that really could have jump-started them into the double dip around halftime. So A- is still the best grade for any roster position this week for me.
Okay. Kincaid out. Josh Palmer goes from it'd be really nice to get him back to the Buffalo Bills desperately need to get Josh Palmer back. And they desperately need him to be somebody that matters in this offense and the passing offense going forward. Offensive line will fly through this. Josh Allen was sacked 3 times. They ran 4 yards per carry. Couple annoying penalties. I didn't think it was their best.
No, it was probably their worst game of the season collectively. Dawkins got beat clean on a one-on-one this week, causing a sack. The run game never really took off. Pass blocking was just kind of okay. They did manage to get Josh Allen some time on that circus play, the schoolyard bullshit that I said earlier. So I gave them a C-. Definitely not their best game of the season. Probably their worst game of the season.
Defensive edge. Let's move the other side of the ball. Greg Rizzo, couple nice run plays. Not really much in the path. The Bills didn't have a sack in this game, by the way, as a unit. Joey Bosa, 2 tackles for a loss. Did play with a club on his left hand, in which I think there were 1 or 2 times where you saw he might have had a tackle that he ultimately didn't make. Javon Sullivan, 3 tackles and an absolute stupid penalty on that Max Hairston interception. I keep saying it didn't end up mattering, But Max Hairston got up. Imagine if he would have ran that football back for a touchdown, which is speed, you never know. And they got called back because Javon Sullivan, who was in pass coverage and hustling down the field, just a dumb block in the back. So anyway, I'm going to dig him for that shit.
Yeah.
And Landon Jackson finally gets an opportunity. We're like, all right, Michael Hoyt's down. And, he's going to get a look here. Let's see how it goes. And a couple snaps in, unfortunately, bam, major knee injury. Not a torn ACL, at least. Thank God for that. But torn MCL and other issues. Who knows when or if he'll be back for this season. Not the worst case with the injury, but still, this season officially becomes a wash, basically, for Landon Jackson. Anyway, defensive edge.
Right. When Daquan Jones is taking defensive end snaps,
God,
you're in trouble. So yeah, I'm giving them a lot of grace, giving them a C- here, I think, because Bosa's playing one-handed, they're down Michael Hoyt, they're down Landon Jackson, they're down. I think a C- is generous for them. You need to get more pressure on Tua. And they've done it really well in the past, but AJ Epinesa is not in this game. They just, I don't know. See, I feel like I'm being nice giving them a C- just because of all the injuries.
Sure. Defensive tackle, Deion Walker. I'm a big Deion Walker fan. I'm going to be honest with you. I keep it 100 with everybody. From what I see watching the game back, not a good game.
No.
Was not a factor. He did have a pass knocked down, but that's about it for the big guy, the big rookie. Dario Ogunjobi, okay. Jordan Phillips, okay. Daquan Jones, he is what he is at this point. I mean, I don't know what you would expect from him.
Defensive ends, you mean?
Yeah, geez. And Fidarian Mathis, I got to be honest with you, man. I got nothing against Fidarian Mathis. It's a cool name, cool story. I don't know why he's on the 53-man roster. He's the 5th defensive tackle. I don't like it. TJ Sanders, the practice window did open on Monday, so you might get him back in the next 1 to 2 weeks or so.
They will. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they'll probably release Mathis, and then maybe it ends up back on the practice squad. Whatever. What do you think?
I mean,
I got nothing else.
They're just another position group that's been hit so hard by injuries. It was not Walker's best game. He got turned completely sideways on the long HN touchdown run, where Cam Lewis had to come up and fill. Tua, getting to Tua works best when you get pressure from the inside, and they weren't able to do that in this game. So I think, again, I'm generous giving them a C-. They really, who would have thought TJ Sanders coming back would be something we're looking forward to, but here we are.
Well, the trade deadline's gone. So now your best opportunity to be good is, make the playoffs and get Ed Oliver back. That's obvious, but it's Deion Walker just getting a little more consistent, and it's TJ Sanders coming back and playing a lot better than he did at the beginning of the season, because that's all there is. Larry Ogunjobi is who he is. Daquan Jones is a shell of what he used to be. I'm sorry. I like him. He's a good leader, but that's what he is. That's all he is. It's not going to change, man.
And I don't think they were planning on playing him as much. They just didn't have any other defensive linemen. I think they wanted to rest him like they did Terrell Bernard the week before. And because he played on the first snap, I think, to get the start. But then that second series, he wasn't even out there. They didn't want to press him. And not only did they press him into the game, they had to move him to a position he hasn't played since he was with the Titans. And
it's
was break glass in case of emergency Daquan Jones out there. And so I really don't want to be too critical of him, because I don't think that they were trying to play him at all in this game.
No. And look, when you give up, the Bills have given up 169 yards of rushing to a running back, a specific running back, 3 times now already this season so far. And it's a complete unit effort, or lack of.
Oh, yeah.
But it starts in the middle, and it starts with defensive tackles. They're just not making any plays. And I don't have a lot of faith. We could sit here and lament Jalen Waddle to the end of the earth. Maybe we should have spent some time, lamenting the fact that they had an opportunity to maybe get Quinnen Williams and they didn't. And that could really come back to it.
I mean, that seems like a pipe dream to me. Putting Quinnen Williams next to Ed Oliver, is kind of mind boggling. Because I wouldn't rotate them. I'd put even though they play very similarly, I would put them next to each other and just let them wreak havoc. But I at least understand the short term you want Quinnen Williams on your team, but longer term, I think Waddle would have had a much bigger impact, because I like what their defensive tackle rotation looks like, and I hate what their wide receiver rotation looks like.
100%. I agree long term, definitely, because Deion Walker, I feel like he's going to get there. He's just not there now, and maybe TJ Sanders does, and you still got Ed Oliver if he could stay healthy, which is, of course, is a big if. All right, linebackers. Terrell Bernard, he had a tackle for a loss. Okay, he had 3 missed tackles. usually PFF grades mean trash, but when you're a 32.9, I feel like he had that. He stinks right now. He's bad. He's not a good NFL linebacker right now. And I'll tell you what, Matt Milano, 4 meaningless tackles in this game, a complete and utter non-factor. He basically was DaQuan Jones or Fedarian Mathis when it comes to linebacking in this football game. Dorian Williams played 3 snaps. The Bills played a 4-3, 3 snaps in this game, and they were the last couple snaps of the game. Did not play until there were 3.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So the Bills went nickel the whole game. Anyway, these linebackers, I feel, maybe you disagree, I think they were a complete and utter disaster again in this football game.
Yeah, Dorian Williams did have one nice play on special teams, but
sure.
We'll talk about special teams later. Yeah, Bernard overran that long Achane touchdown too. So he crashed way the heck to the outside. Achane cut it back in, makes Cam Lewis miss in the hole, and he's off to the races because they didn't have any linebackers there because Bernard was way the hell out of the way. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Who'd have thought that when they signed him that Shaq Thompson would be the linchpin to the freaking linebacker unit. They need him back desperately too.
Yes, they do.
So I gave them a D. It was not good.
Don't tell, to use a Joe from Queens term, the film bros, that Terrell Bernard badly over pursued on that play because I'll tell you that he was in the right gap and it was Cam Lewis. Yes, I know Cam Lewis missed a tackle, but you know what? Bullshit. Bernard, when you see the football, you know where to go. You go to the football. He saw the football and he got caught and then he got swallowed up in a block like he always does.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even close. Like you could say he didn't overrun and maybe he was in the right position, but then the offensive lineman gets his hands on him and Bernard like flails way the hell out of the way. It's not like, maybe he was in the right position, but he wasn't in the right position to make a play because he couldn't get through that offensive lineman.
Quick question here, follow-up question, and then I want to make sure we get to the rest of these. Does Sean McDermott have the balls that if Shaq Thompson could play this game to start him over whether it's Bernard or Milano, because he could play either spot, do one of those guys take a seat on the bench against Tampa Bay on Sunday if Shaq Thompson is good to go? And I don't know that he's going to be, but based on the way he played and the way these guys are playing, is he good to go? 3 weeks ago, I would have said absolutely freaking not. Now,
I think after you lose to the Miami Dolphins, it becomes there is no more like, does he have the balls? Like it's everything should be on the table right now, short of taking James Cook and Josh Allen off the field. Like that's, I feel that strongly about the way that this team is performing right now. So yeah, I guess I'll say the tight ends too. Like don't take the tight ends off the field.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me with Terrell Bernard. We went from, what felt like a good extension to, hey, he's a starter. Now I'm starting to look it over the cap, and I'm like, well, what would it cost him in dead cap money if they make a post June 1st, then, designated cut after just 1 year? Which, by the way, it's not pretty. It's not crippling, but it's not pretty.
He's your captain. Like I don't understand. Like you're gonna. I find it hard to believe that he's defensive captain for Shaq Thompson, but like that means he's benching Milano for Thompson, which would like at least make some sense. But like. I don't know. I would you rather have Bernard or Milano on the field? I predict.
If he's good to go, I predict Matt Milano gets benched. I think Milano plays some 4-3 and maybe you get him in a rep or two there and there, so he's not completely benched. But I think by and large, you're looking at Bernard, who they won't bench, and Shaq Thompson. I had a brain fart there. All right, corner. Max Hairston got cooked twice, including one for a touchdown by Jalen Waddle. But he did have an interception. He's got 2 interceptions now in back-to-back weeks. That said, not all interceptions are created equal. They were basically third and long arm punts that were just overshot deep and whatever. To his credit, he came down with the ball. Hey, playmakers make plays, and we're getting a little bit of taste of that. I don't think he's played bad, but he did get cooked, and you can't say he didn't get cooked. He got beat fair and square one-on-one by Jalen Waddle, one of the better receivers in the game. So you have that. Tre White didn't even have a target. He wasn't even tested. He hasn't been that bad. Tre White's been all right. He had a nice run stop, too, during the game. I thought Cam Lewis overall played pretty good. Again, for a second straight week. He did have a bad missed tackle. If he makes that play, HN don't score. And by the way, it was 16-6 on when that play happened, and then that made it 23-6 to put that game away. So that was a very relevant play in this game. I don't know. Cornerbacks felt like a mixed bag for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing I did with the defensive line. I think, like, how many teams would be okay losing their top two cornerbacks, for a week? And I'll put Taron Johnson in that list. Like, they lost Taron Johnson and
Benford,
Christian Benford in this game, and so Dane Jackson took meaningful snaps in this game. So it's grading on a curve a little bit. I ended up with them as a B just because, again, I'm being nice to them. I thought Hairston had some really nice plays. I'm actually glad it was a game like this where Hairston got caught looking in the backfield and got cooked, because he's not going to make that mistake again. It feels like one of those learning moments for a rookie that has to happen, and it might as well happen in a game where they're getting walloped anyway. Getting beat by Waddle. But that the Cam Lewis missed tackle, and I'm putting him at cornerback this week for sure. It was really hurtful. 8 catches for 102 yards by the Dolphins receivers doesn't feel that bad, especially when you consider the big play to Waddle. I do have you were talking about looking at Terrell Bernard's spot track numbers. I looked at Taron Johnson's this week because of Cam Lewis playing the last couple weeks. And obviously Lewis isn't under contract either. So it would pretty much be a wash. If you cut Taron Johnson and re-sign Cam Lewis, the cap number stays the same in 2025 or 2026. So it's not super great, but it's not the end of the world either.
Let us be because I think of Bernard or Benford, I'm sorry, and I think of this. Let just be a lesson to people out there who say, well, you got Benford hurt, you got Teron hurt. Although I don't think they've missed Teron at all the last couple of weeks. But Palmer, guys like that, and you're like, they're playing Miami. They're be careful. Take that extra week. They're playing this team. Right. No, be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Because look, I don't think Benford gets beat for that long touchdown. Maybe he does. You never know. But I'm just saying, maybe he doesn't get beat for that long touchdown. And again, I agree with you. Long term, it sucked this week, but that might be a good thing for Max Hairston. Kind of a learning lesson. I like Max Hairston a lot. I want to be really clear on that. And speaking of, a real quick follow-up question here. I just asked you about linebacker. Let's say Christian Benford gets back this week from the groin, and he could play against Tampa Bay, who likes to throw the ball, and they're pretty damn good at it. Benford's obviously starting. Do you go, is Max Hairston starting alongside him, or do you go back to your Tre White starts and Max Hairston platoon kind of situation? How do you think that plays out if you could get Benford back?
Hairston has played much better than I expected. It would not surprise me at all to see him play every snap against the Bucs.
Okay. I hope you're right, because that's what I would do too. And if you do that, well, I guess it depends on other injuries, but I think you still. I think
from his injury, I would still keep Tre White active, but we'll see what happens with the defensive line injuries. If they need that roster spot, you could see Tre White sit.
We've been doing this for quite a while now, you and I could feel that chemistry is developing, because you knew I was going to bring that up. I'm like, my first thought was, well, if Tre White's not going to start, you really don't keep him active. But in the infancy stage of Max Hairston starting, I think you do keep him active, because maybe Max falters for whatever reason. He's just making mistakes, and you want to go to the veteran. He's not ready, for all that. So I agree with you there. All right, safeties. I thought Cole Bishop, I think you can make a case he might have been the best player on the field for the Bills in this football game. He had another interception. He's playing good, man. He's in the right spots. He's making tackles. He had PFF, take it with a grain of salt, but he had an 86.1 PFF grade, which was the highest among anybody on the defense. I just thought it was a great game for him. Jordan Poyer, he whiffed on that touchdown after Cam Lewis. He looked like you're supposed to look, like what you would expect Jordan Poyer to look. I know he has been a great story, and he's helped Bishop, and he's probably helping Hancock and this and that. I feel like kind of like Tre White early on, haven't really been tested, but let's just say it was not a great game for Jordan Poyer. Hancock only played 10 snaps, no factor in this game. What do you got?
Well, yeah, if Jordan Poyer is here to play the run game and Hancock is going to take over on the obvious passing downs, Poyer missing that tackle on the HN run is a big deal. That's why you're here. And so I ended up giving them a B-. Cole Bishop certainly brings that up. But I thought it was kind of this is the game I expected from Jordan Poyer when they signed him. Just kind of missing tackles, being below average. He's overplayed what I've expected, not this week, but I guess in general, he's played better than I expected him to. So, the passing game thing is real too. you know, I talked about the wide receivers not doing great for the Dolphins. 8 catches for 102 yards by the Dolphins receivers. Like, it's not like they needed a whole lot of Jordan Hancock in this game, because there probably weren't a ton of obvious passing situations with the Dolphins just gashing the Bills with Achane. So, I really do want to see what happens in like this game on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if we see a lot more of the rookie.
Special teams, that we're going to skip it because I want to get to the end
Sure.
of our stuff. I will say Mitch Wisnowski, a good game too. 54.3 yards per punt on 4. He had a 61-yarder, 2 of them inside the 20. Prater literally didn't kick this game. Literally did not kick a field goal, an extra point, or, the onside kick attempt. Ray Davis ran back kicks. He did have one nice run back, which got called back by a penalty. So, but whatever. Special teams, no real factor in this game. The coaching. Joe Brady, that 4th and 1 pass coming off of Miami timeout, I'm still not happy about several days later. They ran that the week before against Kansas City. It was designed to go to James Cook. And when he wasn't open, you got 2 tight ends down the field. It's just a stupid call. Too cute. Joe Brady struck again. Run the goddamn tush push. If they could stop it from a yard or less, take your hat off to them. But do not do something like that again. That was idiotic. Not enough throwing in this game. Joe Brady acknowledged it too. The pass, especially on early downs, was there. Josh Allen was 12 of 15 for 158 yards when thrown in this game on first down. They should have thrown more. The Bills, here's a non-fun fact. The Buffalo Bills right now, 37.3% pass rate on first down. Last in the entire NFL. And on defense, they play nickel the whole game, and that bothers me too. Nickel or dime. Not one snap of 4-3 against a team that has a shaky quarterback and only one wide receiver weapon, and they want to be able to run the football and control the line of scrimmage, keep Josh off the field, and you made it easy on them to run the football with light boxes the whole game. I thought the coaching and the game plan, and not to mention how flat the team looked, how less energy they played with, and Deion Dawkins said after the game, Miami wanted them more. This was an awful, 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 awful job from top to bottom with the coaching.
Yeah, make sure you clip that out. That was a nice little rant from you. So that was good.
Fires me up. I took your heat away. I'm sorry.
No, and Spencer Brown say they kicked our ass. Like all this, just everybody post game, it did not look like a team that was like ready to win that game. I wasn't as mad about the Bills being in nickel with how fast Achane is and how fast that Dolphins team is, designed to be. So like that didn't bother me as much as what was happening on offense. Interesting thing. I was editing up something for Pride of Detroit, our Lions site, and Dan Campbell took over the offensive play calling this week. Not that I anticipate Sean McDermott or anyone else taking over the play calling for Joe Brady right now, but one of the things that they changed this week is they had been running a lot of big personnel in positions where it made no sense that they were going to be passing the ball. And so teams were able to queue it up. And I think that the Bills are doing some of that similar stuff when that they're going to be running the ball on first down. And so like you're not giving Jared Goff in that case for the Lions, or Josh Allen in this case for the Bills, the opportunity to be going against defenses that are guessing. And so it makes it more difficult. It makes it harder for your offense because they always know you're passing it. And so that's one of the reasons why the average air yards is 5 yards down the field or less, depending on the week, because they know when you're passing it and when you're running it. And so that predictability, I think, is going to be Joe Brady's downfall if he does end up getting fired at the end of this season, is that the other team is reading your mail, man. You need to change it up. And I keep saying this every week, in my hopefully optimistic brain, it's maybe he's saving something for the postseason. It's I don't know if you could do that when you lose to the freaking Dolphins, in Sunday in November. So yeah, I gave them the coaching a D. It was not good.
I couldn't agree more about Joe Brady. I do think that's going to be his downfall, his stubbornness to not be innovative and switch things up enough. It's almost hey, We're better at you, and I don't care if you know what we're doing. Stop it. You know, I coached Little League football before with my son, and I remember there were so many times where we would run the same plays over and over and over again. Now, granted, these are little kids as opposed to professional athletes, but it's like, who gives a shit if the other team knows what you're doing? Stop it. Stop it. We got better players than you. You're not going to stop it. Crowd the line. Who gives a shit? Our running back's going to run your guys over. It don't work like that in the NFL. These are great teams and great defenses, great players and great coaches, and they're going to figure shit out. Teams have figured out the Buffalo Bills right now, and you got to win on first down.
Yeah, there are going to be people that think that Sean McDermott has his hands in the offense and like they're running too much because that's what McDermott wants. After the game, it's rare, but like after the game, Sean McDermott's like, yeah, we need that downfield passing element in our offense. And I'm like, I did like a double take when I heard him say it, just because I don't know if I've ever had to hear him say that before.
Here's a rare gambling take from one Patrick Moran here. I don't know what it would be, but whatever the over-under is for Josh Allen pass attempts in the first quarter on Sunday, I would bet the over. I'm telling you, unless the weather's horrible, they're going to throw the football against Tampa Bay. And speaking of with their last minute or two here, 6-3 Tampa Bay coming to Orchard Park. They lost in New England last week. Baker Mayfield, 16 touchdowns, his 2 picks. This is a dangerous football team. Now, they got some significant injuries like the Bills, but, Buka is just an incredible wide receiver right now, that rookie. Ted Johnson is exciting, and they got a good back seven on that defense. Antoine Winfield Jr., Jacob Parrish, a rookie that I absolutely love in that secondary. Levante David, a great linebacker. Got a lot of talent on this football team. There's a big game. It's going to be a hard game. And Matt, after losing to Miami, this becomes a big game, doesn't it?
Yeah. The Bills don't control their own destiny in the AFC East anymore. Like They need help, and they're not getting it. The Bucs were probably their last best hope of winning the AFC East this past week, because the Patriots schedule from here on out is like cupcakes. So, the Patriots are going to stumble at some point. They're certainly not going to run the table and win whatever it is, 10 or 11 straight to finish out the season. But like, I really was hoping that the Bucs could stand up and beat the Patriots this past week, and they weren't able to do that. Speaking of which, the Buccaneers have several of their front seven was on the injury report this week. And so Buffalo really needs to take advantage of that, whether it's avoiding taking sacks, whether it's getting James Cook moving early in the game. I know we just talked about how they're going to pass the ball like nobody's business, but they're a vulnerable team. They're 6-3. They were 6-2 heading into this game, but they're middle of the pack in terms of like yards per game. Their rushing attack is not very good at all. So like, hopefully the Bills defensive ends can be healthy and get after Baker Mayfield a little bit and frustrate him. It's just that they may be 6-3, but they're not like a great team. They're just kind of like good in a really bad division.
I'll say this to last point, dude. For now, I put the AFC East out of my mind. It could re-enter the conversation for sure. But right now, it's out of my mind. And dude, if they lose this game, I think it's time to start having a little bit of, could the Bills miss the playoffs altogether type of conversation. Because, you got Baltimore and Pittsburgh battling for the top right now, I feel like, in the AFC North. That's the way it's going to play out anyway, even if they're not quite there yet. And then you go to that AFC. So that's one playoff wildcard team potentially there. And then you got the West with the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Chiefs. One of those teams win the division. The other two are in the mix. That's 2 other playoff teams. That's 3 playoff teams right there. And that's not counting like maybe Jacksonville if they can get on a little bit of a heater or something like that. I'm not saying the Bills are going to miss the playoffs if they lose to Tampa. But I'm telling you, if they lose to Tampa, they go at Houston on a short week, the Bills, after that. And then they're at Pittsburgh. The playoffs are no lock by any means. It's certainly not
Joe
their
Burrow's on his way back for the Bengals.
Yes, exactly. So Joe Burrow is almost certain to be playing in that game. You go to New England, you go to Cleveland, who the hell knows? Philly at home. Philly is probably, the way the NFC's looking, they're going to be fighting for a top seed. So, it is it has felt like the birthright for the Bills to make the playoffs and win their division. That's over right now. And if they lose this game, man, there's going to be a lot of questions about the postseason, period. And you could go and start looking at potential road opponents and booking road trips, because you ain't playing in Highmark Stadium if you lose this game.
Yeah, I think they need 4 wins to secure their playoff spot from here. Every team that's got a winning record is probably going to make it, and so like that would be 9-8, and so I think 10-7 is probably the number I'm looking at. And so you have Jets, Browns. Like hopefully you win those 2 games. Like, and then you need
after
2 more
Sunday,
out
dude,
of
after.
there's no more locks on the rest of the schedule.
There really is, man.
We would have
It's
thought that
wild.
the Dolphins was a lock anyway, so I guess that's kind of moot anyway.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, folks. Tomorrow or tonight, depending on when you're listening to this, Wednesday night, 7 p.m., Sunny Reds, Chris Baker, Matthew Fairburn. We're going to talk primarily Sabres, 2 of the more popular hockey media members out there. We'll be live at Sunny Reds, so make sure you look for that. Matt Rich Warren the 7th, SB Nation. It's going to be the only time I ever call you that shit on this show.
Fine.
I just think
it's Thursday night, I'll be in Buffalo for that book event at the place in Kenmore, or sorry, not Kenmore, on Lexington Ave in Elmwood. So if you want to come on over, I think there might be some other Bills media folks there, but I don't want to name names. So
yeah, well, I might be one of them, man. I have now that I know about it, I have every intention on trying to get out there. But anyway, from Matt Warren, and make sure you follow him at Matt Rich Warren on Blue Sky and Twitter. For Matt, I'm Patrick. Thank you very much. Brand new show coming right at you again tomorrow.